I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to do some low to medium immersion dyeing in a catering steam pan. But the main difference is I'm going to lay the yarn in it in a very different way from what I've tried before, and I'm very excited to give this a shot because I think that it'll have some really beautiful effects on the yarn. Now, before we go and get started with the dyeing project, I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you to today's lab partner, Susan. Susan, thank you so much for being my lab partner today, and I really hope you're going to enjoy the yarn and this video. Today, we are going to dye 300 grams of Knit Picks Stroll Fingering Weight yarn. This yarn is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and I've pre-soaked it in plain tap water for about 24 hours. But typically with this particular yarn base, I do around 20 to 30 minutes minimum before I start dyeing the yarn. This is my 4-inch deep full-size catering steam pan. A lot of dyers will use 2-inch deep ones, especially if they have a steaming cabinet, but I like the deeper ones because it gives me more flexibility. Since I dye yarn on my stovetop, then I can increase the water volume more. But it is stainless steel and it's over 2 burners on my stovetop. If you would like to learn more about any of the tools or equipment or yarn that I use in my videos, check out the video description. I have tons of links and affiliate links to exactly what I use. Now, normally when I am dyeing yarn low immersion with multiple skeins in a pan, I lay it like this. So I have one side on the bottom and the other side on top of it like that. This gives you access to a good section of the yarn versus if you lay it sort of in a more circular fashion, you might have access to the same portion all on one side. I do mix this up, and if I'm dyeing one skein, I might have it in this O configuration. Today, we're actually going to twist our skein, and I'm figuring out the best way to do this on camera. Okay, maybe I'll hold that and twist this side. When yarn is damp, I find it a little harder to twist. So we are going to twist the skein, trying to loosen it a bit, and have it in the pan like so. I don't know how neatly I'm doing this. It's not that neat, but this is what we're going to try to do today. There are pluses and minuses to having a twisted skein in the pan. In one way, it gives access to more of the fibers on the surface at once. I feel like I might be twisting this too much. It doesn't look that neat. I wish I could remember where I saw this technique. I did see it, I think in the Art of Hand Dyeing Facebook group, but I cannot remember who shared the post. I feel like this might be a really nice way to fit 400 grams. I'm so off camera, I'm just twisting it with the zip tie. And I really feel like I'm twisting things way too much, but I'm trying to then loosen it a bit. Yeah, I feel like that this could be a really good way to have 400 grams of yarn in the pan because there's more space. But then one of the skeins, what this is doing is meaning that one of the skeins is not on top of any of the others. So I like where this is heading. Let's go ahead and add some water. I've got about 7 cups of water here. And let's see. So we definitely, I might want more water. Let's see. We've definitely got yarn very much at the surface. So this has raised up the yarn a fair amount, which is pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna add, I think I'm gonna add 4 more cups of water, but I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to that. Okay, so we've got 4 cups of water with 2 tablespoons of white vinegar mixed in. All right, so now this is really interesting because we've got plenty of water in here, so that way when we heat things up, but there's area the way I have this set up, so when dye hits these areas, it will spread and move, but also where the dye strikes on the top of the yarn, it will not spread as much because it's out of the water. I wonder if I can fluff these much more. Maybe not. Maybe I have too much twist. Okay, but we are gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna start heating things up and then we will go get our dyes. Part of me wishes that I had prepared 400 grams of yarn. I think another skein would really easily fit in there. And I think I briefly mentioned this, but what seems to be really nice about this is that the 3 skeins aren't layered on top of each other. Sometimes the way I arrange things normally, the ones on the side maybe can overlap the one in the middle a little bit. And so these 3, I feel like when I apply the dye, it's gonna apply pretty evenly to all 3-ish, as much as this random technique of applying dye will do it. The other nice thing about having it twisted already is that we are going to be dyeing both sides of the yarn already. I have dyed twisted skeins many different times. I like to twist skeins up like you would store it and dye it that way multiple times to create a variegated colorway. It's a really fun way to layer color. I also, when I do my anticipation type colorways, like to twist 3 skeins together very loosely and put it inside a pot to space dye. So twisting the skeins is not novel for me, but having it in the pan like this, sort of straight twisted, is new. And again, I am really just basing this off of a picture that I saw someone share where they had the yarn twisted up in the pan. So I have no idea if it's gonna make sense to open the skeins and then dye it again or what, but we will go for this and see where we end up. I suppose with tongs, I should be able to flip it over within this twist. We'll see. For our main colors today, I have some stock solutions of Dharma Deep Purple, True Turquoise, Electric Violet, and then a 2% stock of Dharma True Black. I also have a little bit of some Jacquard Hot Fuchsia on hand in case I want to add some more pink to it. Hot Fuchsia is a color that takes a while to absorb. Actually, the same is true with True Turquoise. And so that will help remove some white as we add the colors. I want to dilute the colors before we get started. In each of these cups, I have 1 cup of plain tap water. And then to that, we will add some of our dyes. So I think I'm gonna start with a 1/4 cup of True Turquoise. We can always do more. And there's some turquoise left in here, but since we're gonna blend the color on the yarn, I don't mind. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of Electric Violet on there. And likewise, I'm going to just rinse that out in this little cup so that way we use up all of our color. Now to this cup, I want to add some of this deep purple, which does look brown until, I don't know if it's either the heat or vinegar, but let's add 1, it's 2, and actually let's go ahead and use it up. So I would say with that last heaping one, we've probably got about 3 tablespoons worth of this color. So a 1/4 cup is 4 tablespoons. So this is about 45 milliliters, and those are each about 60. So we've got already 120, like 165 milliliters of 1% stock solutions, which is equivalent to about 1.6 grams of dye, if you're curious how much dye we are adding. A typical good starting place for adding color to yarn is 1 gram of dye per 100 grams of yarn, and we're gonna probably have less than that. Okay, so in this final one, I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of our 2% stock solution of True Black. So this would be 0.3 grams of dye in here. And so this is our starting palette. But now let's go over to the yarn. Part of me wishes that I had a fourth skein because we have this space in between them. But since I pre-soaked this yarn for so long, there's not a good way for me to have a fourth one that's equivalent, and I do want to compare the different skeins together at the end. That's why we're gonna leave these gaps. But let me know down in the comments below if I should try this again with 4 skeins. But I'm now coming in with my turkey baster and this purple. And so you can see why now this is going to give us something interesting with those gaps, because that color is going to spread. It's going to spread between them, and you know, that's going to happen and we'll be okay. I have no idea what that will end up looking like. And I also have no idea, as I like squirt the dye all over everything, if we're going to end up using up all of these colors or not. I'm sort of, now that I've mixed these colors, going by feel. And I thought initially I was just going to pour directly on, but I like whatever is happening with adding this color and then getting the spread, even as, all right, for consistency, let's add some drops in there just to treat them equally. Now at this stage, I do have some choices. I could wait for all of this color to absorb before adding the next one on. I don't think I want to do that. I do think at some point I will wait before adding more, but right now, I just want to go for this and see what happens. Okay, here is our true turquoise. And I am intentionally letting some of this liquid fall into that in-between space. And so for consistency, we will do that, and let's add some down here. Now, I mentioned earlier, this true turquoise will spread. It's gonna spread more than some of the other colors, but if I don't increase the water volume too much right away, some of these like patches that we're getting right here will likely stick around, and that is really cool. I definitely at this point don't think I'm replicating what I was inspired by at all, but sometimes it's really fun to take a technique and see where it brings you. So I mentioned that this deep purple does look very brown at first, but you'll see in a moment as it sort of soaks in with that heat and acid, it will turn more purple, I promise. But at first it absolutely does look very brown. I'm not planning on trying to leave any white behind at the surface. We may not flip this because I am extremely intrigued with what's happening. But I do, and it's possible the edges are getting more color than the middle, I don't know. But I think at this point, I would like to wait. We have plenty of dye, but I want to give some time for what's absorbed to sink in a little bit. And I also want to give some time for the water level to go further down before we add more color. I am very, very intrigued though. Susan, I hope you're excited. I love it when I get to the point in filming a video where I already want to try it again and tweak some things because I love the direction this is going. I think it would be really, really fun to have this with a more proper low immersion where I don't have pools of water for things to run off. So I think I will try, and maybe even with similar colors, but I think I'm already gonna go and start filming a part 2 of this to try it again without knowing how this one has turned out. But while I'm in front of the camera, please make sure you're subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel, and while you're at it, turn on those notifications. If you would like to learn more about how you can become a lab partner like Susan, get some yarn and shout outs from a video, there are 2 different ways that you can sign up. You can sign up to be a last-minute lab partner, where you can pick from a list of videos I have already started filming. If you go through the description, you'll see a letter code, the yarn base, and then you can read some color hints and what the technique is. So you get to pick exactly what kind of video it is that you are partnering with me for. Or you can sign up to be a lab partner, pick your base, give me some colors to avoid, and then I will start filming that video. Please make sure that you read the description so you know which one you're ordering. If this second lab partner listing is sold out, I encourage you to go and see what I've already started working on for the last minute lab partner listing, or send me a message on Etsy and I can add you to a waiting list to notify once I release more. After filming that talking head, I just started the timer, and you might notice something pretty interesting. Along the middle skein, the water has pretty much cleared, but we have a lot of pigment around either edge. So I'm actually going to allow that color to leak around a little bit to, it may not actually move very much, but just to help things. Okay, so you can start to see it coming down. I'm gonna wait 10 minutes now, but I did want to give that dye a path and to not have the edges be so sufficiently different from the middle, but they really might be. It has been 10 minutes, and let's add some other colors. I'm gonna come in with some of the black now. And add some of this. What I have no idea about is how far these various colors are penetrating into the skein. We also just don't know how, so we don't know how much the color is penetrating in. We don't know how deep this color that we're just applying on the surface is soaking in, and I'm really trying to not touch or move it at all. But I'm now going to come in and we are just going to layer these colors, and I'm attempting, I don't think I want to flip the yarn, which may be a little risky to not flip it. But what I'm doing here is I'm attempting to cover up all white that we have on the surface. I figure since so much dye is going in between these various skeins, that some of that might go towards the center, and certainly we know that all of the sides have been dyed as well. Let's add a little bit of blue there. Let's do a hint of blue right there, just layered. And we'll do some blue here. I am keeping an eye on the volume of water that we have because I want to preserve, I mean, I'm layering on top of each other. I would like to preserve some of these colors that we see on the surface. So that is just why I'm keeping an eye on that. But I'm noticing that our deep purple is looking less deep at the moment. So I am going to be finishing this up. I think that is the only color that I have finished. And then for this last white spot, I'm going to come in with some black. And so again, we've got color spreading on the sides, we've got color on the top. If we have white left in here, it is because of our twist and that resist. But the turquoise could spread and soak in more. That could happen. We could end up with a lot of white. We could have white from where the yarn is on the base of the pan. That is something that can happen as well. But We have treated the 3 of these very, very similarly, and I'm really excited. So anyway, now I am going to let this sit for 20 minutes on low heat, and we'll see where we are when that time is up. It has been 20 minutes, and I'm gonna reduce the heat to low now, and we're gonna peek inside this for the first time, since most of the color has absorbed. All right, let's see. Ooh, okay, I see some white that is a few layers down. I have no idea if this will go down to the bottom or what. Certainly, Susan, if I am not happy with the coverage, once we open these up, which I think I will wait a tad bit longer. But if we're not happy with the placement and the coverage and the amount of white, let's see, looking in through the side, I do see that we've got some white there. Yeah, if the yarn feels, ooh, I'm curious about the bottom. Let's actually lift. Oh, cool. See that? There is a section on the bottom where there is white. Because the dye couldn't access that bottom area. But, oh, this is really, really fun. Actually, you know what? We're not gonna wait. We are going to pick these up and let them unwrap because I don't really see any other color left. So look at that bottom, and it is unwrapping, and ooh, wow. Okay, so before I open this up more, it's like, because of the twist, it's like a diagonal stripes of white. What I don't know is how much, what I don't know and I can't tell yet is how big some of these white sections are compared to the rest of the yarn, but it is really, really pretty. Okay, I think what I want to do is we are going to open up these other ones. Oh, this just looks so fun. So fun. I do not know yet if I want to over dye it, because I think that there is some space that's sort of trapped in the middle where there might be less color, but we will see. And if once it has cooled, I'm going to turn off the heat and go and let this cool. Once it's cooled, we'll take a closer look at it and then decide if I want to twist it up again and add more color to it. That is actually a choice that maybe we'll end up picking. Yeah, I think I'll let this cool so that way I can handle it a little easier. Let's go ahead and remove some of the liquid so it cools off a little bit faster. Yeah, I think that if I want to add more color to this, I definitely don't mind there being white. Having that white with these really saturated colors is really, really fun. I think that, yeah, we might twist and add more to the other side if some of those white gaps feel a little too big. But actually it might be pretty balanced, and so we might just leave it as is. Now, I will add that I've already started filming a follow-up to this because I am really, really excited and inspired by this technique. But we'll come back once this is cooler. This yarn has cooled considerably. And now let's take a look. I think that if I really wanted to have these colors spread more, I should start cold. Use something to sort of manipulate the dye through the fiber a little bit more, or even start with no acid. But let's look and see. What I'm looking for are really large white sections where there's no color. And so I have white sections here that have less color, but I'm not seeing massive areas that are undyed. Certainly there's not balance necessarily in the sense that there are areas with more color and areas with less, but even on these areas where I see a lot of white, they do eventually have color. And it's wild. It's a very wild, loud colorway, but the coverage that we got throughout, like we're not seeing, I'm really, really excited. I'm not seeing areas that feel completely undyed. So these are my thoughts. I'm gonna set this aside to finish cooling so we can wash it. I think today I am not gonna dye this again, but I think that you certainly could dye it again, and I want to do this whole project again. I've already started filming a slightly different version, but I want to do this again sometime where I do retwist and add more color after it's cooled. I think that that would be a really fun way to layer colors. And so that is something I'm definitely interested in trying. But for this set, I think that we should leave it here. I don't often dye colorways that have lots of white left behind. A lot of times I'm like, I gotta cover up that white. I want to avoid it. Now, this is something that is very, very loud, and how it will knit or crochet up, there will be dark patches and light patches. Maybe not the best yarn for doing a complex lace or cable project, but it is still really fun, and I want to embrace that. So again, while you can layer this, whether you dye it first or you over dye it, we have a yarn that is pretty well balanced just dyeing it once, versus when I have it the way I normally have the yarn in the pan, maybe it would feel like half of the whole skein has no color on it yet after dyeing it just one side. So have I perfected this? No, absolutely not. There is more I need to explore and learn for playing around with this, and the way I think that, you know, starting cold would be really fun. Adding some pressure while you add that dye to help it move through a little bit more would be really fun, or over dyeing it after the first round. All these things are things that would be really, really fun to do. I guess another thing would be to add the dye with more volume. Like a lot more volume, dilute it, add it really heavily so it spreads more. Like when I do that leftover-ish space dyeing technique with a lot of water and really just pour the colors and let them spread. I think that would be really fun on this as well. So again, if you want to see more, let me know what variations you would like to see me try down in the comments below. Let's wash this yarn. We might see some bleeding from that turquoise. That color has something in it that isn't super soluble. But thankfully I haven't observed beyond like after washing any color transfer or anything from my hand. But we could end up with some back staining of some blue on these pale areas, but I did see a tiny bit of some blue on the pale areas before we even started washing. So I'm adding just some plain dish soap. I'm using the sprayer to distribute it a bit. I'm not sure how much the soap helps if we're removing stuff that isn't the most soluble from the fiber, but at least with pinks, the soap did help prevent back staining, and there's a fair amount of blue there. Okay, so what I think I want to do is change the water, because there's a bit of blue there. There's still soap in the yarn, and I am going to fill this up with water and let it soak for a few minutes, with a hint more soap. It has been a couple of minutes. Sometimes a good soak can help remove it. Some blues in general can be trickier, and I have not yet found, except now I know that this true turquoise is a color. The jacquard turquoise I don't think bled this much when I have used it, so I could be misremembering. but I think that I will probably pick the other one. But it does have to do with the blue pigment. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and do some like soaks and rinses off camera. This one might be a good candidate for using the 5-gallon bucket, so that way I can rinse it in a greater volume of water versus doing more small rinses. But it is already a lot better. That is really not that bad. And trying to determine if I'm seeing the back staining. I don't think so. But anyway, I will be back to check in. All right, a few rinses and soaks later, and I am no longer seeing the bleeding. So I'm gonna put this yarn through my spin dryer and hang it up to dry. I have loved dyeing twisted skeins of yarn for a very long time. There are even some videos with it pre-Dyepot Weekly. So I'm not sure why I haven't tried twisting it in a pan before. I usually try to make sure the yarn is untwisted, but I really like how this came out, and I like this as a way to separate the skeins more in a pan, because suddenly I'm less concerned about having one of them trapped underneath others. And this is not yarn that we flipped multiple times either. And we've got, sure, we have a lot of white, but we have also good coverage and some fun blending of the colors. I think this region right here is one of my favorites. I just love the way that those different colors came together and layered on top of one another. While I think that the background color does have some white, I also do see a hint of pale blue on a lot of these areas. And so I'm not sure if this is from the washing or from when I first opened it up. I certainly don't mind. I like that color. There's still high contrast. But this is something to keep an eye out for. If you really want to preserve some of that white in there, maybe twist a little harder, or use a color that's not like true turquoise that won't bleed and will strike a little bit faster to the yarn. I still can't believe how much space we had in the pan, even though we had 300 grams of yarn in it. And I have already started filming a video with 4 skeins of yarn in the pan with a very similar technique, some variations. So please make sure you're subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and go ahead and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. And while you're at it, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I absolutely want to explore this so much more. I don't think I'm going to completely switch my technique to laying the yarn out like this, but one of the fun things about playing and varying your techniques is that you learn and then you end up falling into things that you really enjoy doing and things you don't like as much. And this is something that is very personal to the dyer. So I encourage you, if you've been trying things one way for a really long time, maybe take a chance and mix things up a little bit, because you never know. You could end up with finding a slight variation to your technique that you love that much more. Susan, thank you so much for being my lab partner today in this episode of Dyepot Weekly. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you love the yarn. So Susan, thank you again for being my lab partner today. It's funny, with each new video I film, I feel like sometimes they spark like 5 or 6 different ideas. And my list of ideas keeps growing longer and longer, which is a good thing. It means I'm not likely to run out of inspiration anytime soon. But while the ideas list has lots of options, please let me know what you would like to see me try out down in the comments below. I do add all of your suggestions, questions, and requests to this list that I frequently draw from as I am creating new videos. So whether it's a fiber content, a technique, or a color combination, please continue to leave your suggestions below. They absolutely influence the direction that the content goes. Anyway, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.